Good day, everybody. Matt here from Greenius, and we're back for part two of our snow series here with partnership Botson Insurance and the Ohio Landscape Association. And we got some awesome speakers today here, very knowledgeable. We're actually insanely lucky to have their time here today. So I'm really excited to learn along with everybody else here today. So some key takeaways today, and I said this in our last webinar, whenever I go to a webinar, myself personally, I always try to set 3 or 4 goals for myself that I'm really going to learn at the webinar and go out and execute on, kind of like intentions. So it just kind of gives the webinar a bit more purpose to yourself and some action items to take away here. So we're going to be talking about navigating snow and ice management, real stories and legal implications. We're going to be talking about effective site management from planning to postseason. And we're going to be talking about claims and settlements, a claim adjuster's perspective. So there's going to be a lot. We're trying to squeeze into this tight time zone here. So I'm going to introduce the speakers here. I'll send it over to Amy first. Amy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Grace. I am a senior general liability claim rep with the United Fire Group.
Awesome. And Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Rose. I'm a partner and witness expert at Allen Rose Consulting. We do consulting strictly in the snow and ice management industry.
Awesome. And Greg. Oh, I think you're on mute there, Greg.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Sorry about that. I was printing something, so I didn't want you to hear that. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back for our second part of our 3-part series. Greg Botson with Botson Insurance Group, a Higginbotham partner, and we've focused on providing truck insurance, liability, and equipment insurance to the green industry for the last 33 years. And we focused on Ohio, but now we're taking this to a more national level to help the green industry across the country.
Awesome. And I'm Matt from Greenius. I'm one of the co-founders here at Greenius. I've been here 17 years, and we're really helping contractors train and educate their snow teams so they're efficient, they're making less mistakes, they know what's expected of them. And a lot of our contractors are seeing some great results and really fewer incidences from that. So we're trying to share all our knowledge with everybody and just help our contractors build high-performing snow teams. So that's what we're doing on the Greenius side here. So I'm going to kick it over to Lisa to get us started here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm going to talk specifically about the slip and falls from the litigation standpoint. As you can see, that these tell you about the issues from slip and fall. They definitely are time consuming. They can be devastating to the company. And the way to get around that is definitely develop a plan and preferably do it from a place of choice as opposed to necessity. Let's get prepared before you have a slip and fall so you are prepared if and when it happens. Quite honestly, if you do snow and ice mitigation, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter these days of when it's going to happen. So some of the things I'll talk about are just a few stats here. These are real life stats. Of course, I like to talk about snow. So being from Erie, Pennsylvania, and in Ohio that snow is a very prevalent way of life. And in 2017-18, we got about 65 inches of snow just in 1 week. And that's pretty significant. And your plan has to be ready for anything. That's the point. These other stats are just to let you know slip and falls are very serious. Some of them can be catastrophic injuries and can be significant to your business. So let's get into it. The way I talk about this and the simple way that I've come up with to explain this is basically tell your story. Your documentation is key. This will be talked about later. Document, document, document. And so I break it down into 3 basic sections, just like a book: beginning, middle, and end. And that's what your documentation should be doing for you. So what does that mean? Well, the beginning, as you can see, I've laid out a few things here. Always, and first and foremost, and always, you should have a written contract. I didn't put that on here. We talked about that in the last session, but you absolutely should have a written contract. And that should include a scope of work. And then for each and every site, you should do a site visit and a site plan. That should be done every year for every site. I know it seems easy when you have these rollover contracts or sites that you've done them for 5, 6, 10 years to, get lazy. I know this site. It's the same people doing the site. It doesn't matter. The site changes over time. You may develop depressions at the site that's now holding water. You have a downspout that has been cracked or broken and is now discharging in another area that's creating an icing condition. So it really does need to be done each and every year. In addition to that, you need to do your training. And I can't strongly enough recommend using your local organization like your Ohio Landscape Association. They just had their snow and ice clinic. I hope you were there. Use Snow and Ice Management Association. They're a national organization. If you join Snow and Ice Management Association, with that membership comes tons and tons of training. They have lots of forms. They have tons of videos. Most of them are now all in Spanish as well. So in the past, we've had a lot of language barriers, but we're breaking through that as well. The training is only as good as if you show it and document that you've done that. You can have beautiful PowerPoints. You can have beautiful forms that tell what you're going to do. But if you don't share that with the people doing the work and you don't document that you've shown that information to them and that you've actually trained them, that won't be helpful to you in a litigation case. The middle of your story is just that. Now we're into the winter season. So some of the things that are really important is weather prediction. So there are tons and tons of weather prediction services out there. I'm not sure in your geographic area if there's a particular one that's used, but there's ION, there's CompuWeather, WeatherWorks. There are many, many. But the key that I bring up in this section is it's great if you have a prediction service, but are you retaining the information that you get from them? Are you keeping on the computer? Are you saving somewhere? Are you saving it per customer? Are you saving it by zip code? What was it that caused you to go to the site to service in the first place? Or if you don't, and if you save those notifications, then when you don't have a notification, that can help you say, I wasn't notified that there was going to be below freezing temperatures. Maybe this wasn't predicted at all. That could help you. Also, communications with a customer. We all know about these. There are so many modes of communication now. It's super great, super convenient, but it's also very difficult to track and retain. So text messages, emails, phone calls, they must be saved. And you know this, it's really important. If they tell you for some reason they don't want you to apply salt, look, it's below freezing at 6 a.m., but it's supposed to be 40 degrees by 11 a.m. I don't want you to apply any salt. Okay. Did you save that? Make sure you save it, because at 9 a.m. if someone slips and falls, you're on the hook. It doesn't say anywhere in your contract that you're not supposed to service in that situation, right? So now you're on the hook. Also, training means training your crews while they're on the site, right? It's not just go in and shovel the walks. Have them look around. If they're coming in, they should be coming in before the plower. But if they're coming in after the plowing, have them take a look. Look at the parking lot. What's there? Is everything being done well? Hey, just want to let you know they're missing the dumpster area, or they're plowing in the dumpster area. That training is really important too. I do want to point out, although I don't like to generally read the slides, one of the items listed here is about areas serviced and not serviced. So your documentation can include not only what you did, but what you didn't do and why. We got to the site and there was a gate that was locked. I many times had to call district managers to say, look, the gate's locked. It's not supposed to be locked. They know we were coming, but we can't get into service. So you have to document that you actually didn't service the site and why. This is a very common scenario too, where you have retail locations, people park in there overnight. They decide to do a third shift stocking or reset, a deep cleaning, whatever it might be. And now you've got all these cars in the parking lot overnight that normally aren't there. Definitely document that, because you cannot clear and salt as you would normally. So that's actually where you were not able to service. And this is duplicative from the standpoint of site monitoring. Was the job done correctly? Again, teach your crews not just their responsibility, but, take a look around. What's going on the site? Is everything being done well and being done right? Okay. And then we get basically to the end of the story. So this is after the season is over. It's really, really important to do basically what I call a documentation analysis. How is the documentation? Are you using an app? If you're using the app, are you able to capture that data? Here's a really good test. 2 years from now, if I walk into your business and I say, what can you tell me about the event from February 20 of 2022? And if you can't pull that data together, you're never going to be able to protect yourself if there's an incident. The other thing, this is a little off script, but the other thing I really learned a lot when I've consulted with companies through COVID, you also need to cross-train. This isn't relative to slip and falls, but it is so important. Here's the situation. Lisa gets sick. She has COVID. Something happens to Lisa. Who else knows where to get this documentation from? Do you think a plaintiff who slipped and falls really cares that you've lost your key office person? They don't. They're not going to be sympathetic to that. And if you have the documents, but you can't retrieve them, it's not helping you. All the things that you've been doing really aren't effective. I hope that makes sense, because it really is the key component, is how to retrieve the data. How are you storing the data so that someone knows or multiple people know how to get to it? The final thing I'll talk about is, the postseason follow-up. This is your chance to figure out what went right and what did not go right. If you need to, do an addendum to the contract. This is the time to do it. Communicate with your customer. What worked well for them? What didn't work well? Maybe they didn't tell you during the season, but now is the time to talk about it, because trust me, by next season, you will have forgotten all the trials and tribulations that you went through the prior season. So the final analysis really is basically, will your documentation tell the whole story that you need to defend yourself, not in a week, but, years from now? And I'm going to turn it then over to, I guess, Matt, or maybe over to Amy.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lisa. And it's really great. The three things you need to really protect yourself are documents, documents, documents.
Yeah.
So I hear that at a lot of events I've been to when there's always a guest speaker talking on this topic, and the commonality is document, document, document. So it's a great segue to Amy, if you wanted to take us through this section.
Sure. So I don't have any slides. Sorry about that. But I feel like I'm a good resource because I'm the person, after you've done all this, you did a great job, you got your contract, you performed well, and then months go by, you don't hear anything, and attorney letter shows up. And by that time, the season's over. Most of the time when I get these claims, we're well past when it happened. You were not there when it happened. You know nothing about it. And here comes the claim. And it's everyone's frustration. It's my frustration with you guys because snow is a naturally occurring item. You didn't make it. No one can control every flake. It is ridiculous to think that any of you can make any surface completely flake free. I mean, it's actually, very frustrating because it is something that people are obviously aware of. It's not like you don't notice the snow everywhere. Everyone's aware of it. So it kind of feels unfair that you did everything right, you did what you were supposed to, and then 3 months later, you get this claim in and you're like, I don't know anything about it. Unfortunately, that leads to, I get the claim on my desk and I'll call you guys, whoever did the work, and your shoulders go, I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know what happened. And it's just as frustrating for me. But it's also very important that you cooperate with me and give me everything that you can to try to help you. Because I think what ends up happening is you hear from me that day and you think, oh, whatever. It's something that kind of goes by the side. And then a month or two goes by and we haven't talked. And now, the balls are spinning or turning. And you're like, wait, what? This person's got 7 fractures. They're in and now the red alert is here when we needed to set you up for success way before that. With that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ohio specifically. I know obviously I saw everybody wasn't from Ohio, but a lot of you are. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Snow is to be expected. It's not like this is the first year we're going to have snow. It's been here since I was a little kid and we all know about it. The good thing about Ohio is that they are actually pretty reasonable in the legal environment as to slips and falls. That's not to say that that's the same everywhere, but that's one point I would like to point out to everybody. Wherever you are doing this work, it can't hurt for you to have a little information and some education about what the law is in your state, like where I'm going to be performing these services. What does it look like for me? There are venues that are common sense. Snow is open and obvious. It is something that we, should not be necessarily responsible for unless we do something wrong. To give you an example, in Ohio, we have something that's called a no duty law, which seems to make perfect sense. As a property owner, you don't have a duty to remove snow. There are 2 exceptions to this, and that is if you know about a situation that is worse than the natural accumulation. Lisa mentioned the leaking gutter, or when you pile snow, you create this giant pile that actually melts right onto the sidewalk. You're making it worse. You'd have been better off doing nothing than making a condition that's more hazardous than the natural accumulation itself. And then so there's the 2 exceptions are 1, knowing about those conditions, or 2, actually actively making the condition. So a lot of times, I know Lisa hit upon the site map. It's very key that you go out and actually look at it and put some thought into, if I pile a giant mound of snow here, obviously snow is going to melt. Where is it going to go? Where is the natural drainage? Where am I trying to direct this? And also that the claimant signs off on your site map agreeing that this is where they wanted the snow and that you were not going to remove the snow from the property, that the contracts state those things clearly. So like I say, Ohio is a good venue, but wherever you're at, it really wouldn't hurt you to take a look or just look on the internet. The laws are out there and see, when I'm in this venue, what am I going to get as far as the snow and ice, slip and fall claims? So, and I know Lisa hit upon the contract. Obviously, Lisa did a really great job of saying like the beginning, the middle, the end. And claims are kind of like that too. The beginning part of the claim, I don't know about, but you can set me up for success by doing a great job with the contract and the site map. I literally handled, I don't know, I've done this for 30 years, numerous slip and fall claims. And literally, this is what always happens. The claim comes in, I call the insured and they go, I got nothing. And I am not a priority to them. So they promptly forget
Those
about
are
me.
my clients, Amy.
Okay, no, some of them. So you're right. So I would give you the make this a priority. When you get that call from the adjuster, call them back, give them information. Even if it's nothing, get the information that you can. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have a contract? Amazingly, half the people have nothing. Like they don't even think a contract would be helpful. But with that said, have a good contract. A bad contract is worse than no contract, because no contract, you haven't promised anything. So at least I have something to work with in the sense of, you know, hey, we made no promises. The bad contracts, I've had contracts that literally state, we will accept all responsibility for all injuries and property. I mean, this literally, you've accepted liability before you've even done anything, which is really hard for us when we were set up like that. So the contract matters. I can't state that enough. It's not like, I think more people in the snow, and I get it. I mean, they want to get paid. They want to have the contract detail what it is, what they're going to do, how they're going to get paid, and what the ramifications are if they don't get paid. But the slip and fall on the end, you have no idea the financial ramifications of what that claim will do to your insurance policy, getting coverage going forward. And it's your frustration is that you see this claim a year later and you go, now I can't get these premiums. But it all goes back to the starting, setting us up for success. Get a good contract. Make sure that it does what it can. And when I bring that up, there's the contract that you write, and there's the contract that the customer writes. Two different ones. If you're going to do service for like a Walmart or a big box store, they're going to give you their contract. And that contract is probably going to make you on the hook for an additional insured, which means they're going to be listed on your policy, which means your policy is going to provide them a defense. Regardless, you are basically a way for them to get free snowplow by putting their liability on you. And so consider that when you take it. How much am I getting from Walmart? Because every single claim that they turn in is immediately going to be a letter to you that says, and think about it, how many people go to Walmart every day? And we all just discussed that snow is a changing beast. Even when you leave the property, the conditions are going to blow, people are going to track, it's going to melt and refreeze. And every single slip and fall at Walmart, and by the way, aging population, it's harder for them to traverse the snow and the ice. So, you know, and you have to think, oh gosh, I do snow plowing at a eye clinic. Oh, well, what could go wrong there? So to have those thoughts. So start the beginning, which is before you even get to talk to me, one, have a good contract.
Hey, Amy, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure, go ahead.
You had mentioned the big box stores. It is getting extremely difficult to even find an insurance carrier to provide a quote if you deal with one or several big box stores. So if you take on that responsibility, it's great to make the money and have the job, the work, but you may run the risk of not being able to get affordable insurance or any insurance because of that contract. So you mentioned Walmart or big box stores. That's becoming increasingly difficult. We do have some carriers that will consider it, but you need to provide a copy of the contract and they need to review it to make sure you're not accepting too much liability.
And with that said, that's what I'm saying. They're going to give you the contract, and it's
Right.
definitely going to be favorable to them because they have the attorneys. And then, you know, like you say, you're happy to get the work. It's probably decent pay, but at the end of the day, what they're really doing is pawning all of their snow and ice liability off onto you. And you think to yourself, who's the bigger entity here, Walmart or the snowplow provider? Obviously Walmart. And so for the price that they're paying for this snowplow to get free coverage for all of their slips and falls, it's a pretty good deal for them. And it's not a good deal for us. We find those in really hard. And if nothing else, if you get an attorney who just files suit, we have no choice but to pay for the defense. And that's not cheap. So just be careful when you sign up for those things to know what's in your contract, because it's very frustrating for us on the other end when we get the claim, when the person goes, I had no idea that this was what it was. Well, now you know. So it's something to take into consideration. Is it worth the money for what you're, doing? Venue, the type of places that you're doing, the contract. And then also in the contract, it is really important that you really put in there what it is that you're going to do. For example, the service description. Another one that I think is really important is to mention, it is non-negotiable. I see in the chat. Exactly. So do you want the business or do you not? It's up to you. But the service description and the terms will help you, like trigger, re-trigger. Am I per push? Are you calling me? Is it 2 inches and I'll be out? Make those things very specific as to what it is that you're promising to provide. Usually there should be some kind of language in there that always says, like, the blizzard condition. It's going to snow for 12 hours. I can't be on your property for 12 hours. I'm going to be there for a designated service term, and I can't be responsible for blowing, drifting, melting, refreeze. Also be very, very specific about the salting. There are I love this. The customer wants you to use such little salt because it damages their property, but then they want you to pay for all the slip and falls because we didn't use enough salt. So make sure that in the contract that they are very specific about, where do you want me to salt? Mark the areas on the map. I only salt here, so when the accident's here and the person slips and falls, you go, oh no, I don't salt there. You told me not to. This was in the contract. And salting is difficult because like I say, they don't want you to use any, but yet they want you not to have a single slip and fall. Also on the salting, when you mark the map, determine how much, how we're doing it per labor hour, per bag, and keep track of those things. Make sure when you actually go out. So the next thing that I'm talking about, besides the contract, is the documentation of this. So the beginning is the contract, the middle is the service. So while you're out there, when they go out, I don't know what you do as far as keeping logs, but there should be a designated person in your office who has some types of logs of what hours they went to what sites, how many people, how much salt, how many labor hours, what equipment, whatever. It sounds like a lot, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, whoever it is who's in charge of all of this, if they just do all the work that you do in a day and keep records of that, I can't tell you how many times I call people and they're we have something, and they send me a one-line gibberish that says, really, no, I have no idea. Were there trucks? Were there people? How many hours? I almost never get site photos. I would really recommend, if at all possible, in this day and age of technology, I know they've mentioned some kind of app or something. A lot of our people have GPS that actually keep times that the vehicles, equipment are on site, so that I can go to them and say, look, we were there from 8 to 10, you know what I'm saying? And we can actually say, so that's why it's important that, like I say, in the contract, that it describes what you're going to do. The site map's going to be caught up, what the service standards are. Make notes of things like, I can't plow around cars if they're I'm not going to come within 2 foot of a car. I'm not going to, those things all have to be on there, because that's all that I'm going to have to rely upon when I'm going to try to fight the claim on the back end. And like I say, it's really unfortunate because you guys won't, when this claim comes in, all this will be way done. And if you don't have it, then we can't go back and get it. So there's no way for me to defend these. If I get the claim where I get no contract, no documentation, I just go, well, I'll do my best. But it really, really helps if you actually can do these things. And to take into consideration those costs of documentation in what you're bidding these jobs, so that you have enough to support these things, because these claims on the back end are what's going to make your premiums either manageable for you to continue doing business, or to a point where you can't. I mean, you can't pass those costs on to people. So I see a lot of these contracts and I see what they pay, and I think one slip and fall, I mean, we're talking $10,000, $15,000 a season. In the world of claims, that's not much. I mean, these claims nowadays, if someone breaks a leg on your property or something like that, we're lucky if they file suit, that even if we get a direct verdict, that we haven't spent $40,000 in litigation costs. So we do our best. I think a lot of people think at the end, they're like, oh, they're just paying these claims. We're not. We are, trust me, our money depends on whether our premium is what you pay us. And then if we pay more in claims, we're not making money either. So we are doing our best. But when we have nothing to work with, we're stuck. Let me see if there was anything else on here that I wanted.
Tyler had a question around the big box stores. His comment was, this is tough because the big box stores make that part of the clause non-negotiable. Is there a separate insurance rider for that can be paid for the cost passed down to them? So it's getting back to that big box store issue, making it around, I believe, the risk aspect, I think.
Yeah.
I could jump in on this one. Tyler, no, we deal with these situations a lot. If you're working with it for a big box store, there's no company that's going to do an endorsement to pay more for these big box stores. So they're either going to accept the whole account and assume the risk and charge you a premium that's appropriate, or they're not going to quote you, they won't want to quote your account. So the key there is if you're not making money, or if it's not a good client for you, then you need to pass. But if it is, then you need to find an insurance company that will accept working for big box stores and get a copy of the contract so they feel comfortable with the risk. But no insurance company they can't charge enough to just say we're responsible for anything that happens in the parking lot of the big box store, because it could be a chuck hole and a person trips in a chuck hole that was there before you even started plowing, and we're paying out hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it is for that. So it's all or nothing to answer your question. There's no endorsement that you can add.
It's a shame, but I would definitely just give those types of it's important to give thought to the contract that you're signing as to whether or not financially it's even really a good deal for you. Because like I say, they're writing those contracts. If they're giving you the contract, then definitely have it reviewed with your insurance, agent. Let them know the type of work that you're doing so that you're covered appropriately. A lot of them will make them, like I say, an additional insured. And when that says that basically means you're insuring them for those risks. So, imagine what every single claim that Walmart has, they're going to tender to you, which means to us. And you will likely never know about any of them until way past the date. So the couple of last things I just wanted to hit upon that I had in my notes. If possible, designate someone in your office to be the person who knows where all the logs are. And like Lisa said, maybe that person's gone, but if it's organized and in a way where people can retrieve that information, it would be really helpful. Sometimes I get nothing. The ones where I get very detailed information really helps. I mean, it really is something. If you can even, and then like the site, when you do the site, to actually note things like take photos of the depressions or even property damage as well. A lot of times I get these companies that are like, okay, it's the end of the season and here's all the damage to my parking lot. And you're like, wait a second, but if you take those pictures beforehand, we have something to say, hey, this is what the conditions that we had. So, and those are all things I can't do. I don't get the claim until way after. So if you set me up for success, you will have better success at the end. And to cooperate with us and to provide us the information when I or whoever calls that you actually have that stuff for us, the contract ready, the site map, and the details of what you did, that would be really helpful. So I think that's all that I have. And if anyone had any questions, that'd be.
That's a really good point. And I know a large snow contractor. We're here in Ontario, but they do a lot of HOAs and condos associations. So they have thousands of laneways they're responsible for. So you can imagine the claims they go through. But their documentation is next level. And I know a direct case where they ended up getting sued for a slip and fall. And the homeowner had run out in their slippers in the morning to grab something from their car and had slipped and fall. And the contractor was able to prove they had been there twice that night. They had photos of before and after of each time they were there. they were able to show the weather report from that night of when it stopped snowing, and they had cleared after that. They were able to show the services they provided, the materials they put down, and the training those employees had that had been clearing that property. So the verdict went very quickly to the contractor because they had incredible first-class documentation. So it might seem like a headache, but it's extremely valuable to do that. And the other lesson I learned from that same contractor was when there's no contract in place, people assume to their benefit. So the properties are all going to think, hey, I'm getting all this level of service. I'm going to get the snow cleared. It's going to be the best of service I'm ever going to get. But then the contractor's like, oh, yeah, this is an easy property. We just got to plow it once a night. And so people assume to their benefit when there's no contract. So get the services in writing and just align everybody. So all awesome points. It was really great. There's a question. A question just came in. Have you ever heard of a situation where photos hurt a contractor in a claim as opposed to helping them with that type of documentation? Someone said photos are not necessary to have good documentation and can sometimes cause a problem instead of helping. We've always used best practice of the more photos, the better. Any thoughts on photos hurting you versus helping you?
Well, yeah. I have had photos hurt people, but only in the sense that if they've done something, like I said, where they've made the situation worse, where they've done, and so most of these are no, I would say almost exclusively no. I've had one that I remember, but it would have never happened because if you've had a site map and you agree to where you're going to pile, that's not going to happen. But I had someone do something that was, not great as to how they decide. They piled it up over sidewalks. So, and then they took a picture of it, which is bad.
To add to that, I've heard in the industry from a claim standpoint that sometimes a photo will maybe put a negative provide a negative outlook on a claim situation. But if the insurance company knows that you're at fault, they'll be able to have a quick remedy and get it taken care of and avoid litigation and really reduce the size of that claim. They'd rather know about it up front that they're liable and get it taken care of than to drag it out with depositions and other things and get it handled right away and eventually save money, because of those photos. So
I'd like to jump in here too for just a moment. Pardon me. I do know there's a consultant out there that is advocating this, but I will tell you, if you have nothing else but a photo, it could be detrimental to you. But if you do all the things that we've covered today, that we covered in our last webinar, and that they're going to cover in the next webinar, and you combine it with the photos, that makes a difference. Even if you have done something that's, snow on a sidewalk isn't good. But if you show that you've set a precedent of servicing frequently, you have good records, you had training, and this was a one-off time situation for whatever reason, it could be helpful. Just a photo alone is not enough, good or bad. So it's a combination of all this. And that's why we don't just say document. We say document, document, document. And that's my 2 cents.
As part of attending the webinar here, there's a bit of a bonus here. So you can reach out to Greg at Botson Insurance to engage with his company. And he has a great team over there to get your contract reviewed and maybe look for any issues there. You're eligible for a 25% discount with Samsara Transportation Technology. Again, that's through Greg there. And if you are using Greenius and you're with Botson Insurance and you're a member of the OLA, you could be eligible for an up to 20% discount on your insurance as well. So lots of opportunity there. So definitely give Greg and his team a shout to see how we can help you as well.
I do want to add to that, Matt, that a lot of companies now are really giving a lot of consideration to cameras inside and outside the vehicles. And a lot of times, if you have a camera going outside the vehicle, it'll show that you didn't hit that car or didn't cause the damage. So you can use that video or pictures from the cameras to support denying a claim. And that was one of the reasons why I put that camera discount in there, because it goes with our topic and it can be used to help you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, cameras are becoming extremely important in this day and age, especially as the crews are out and about on the road, and just traffic accidents that are not their fault, that it's quite easy to blame the contractor in the letter truck as the causing the accident when they might not have. So they do have a lot of value there. So next steps with Greenius. Greenius is great on the training side. We provide all those training records. We have 20 or 30 snow courses around that. So we have been involved in claims where we had to provide all those training records and history and documentation. So we're a really great platform for that. Again, Greg, did you want to talk about that slide in the middle here on that discount?
Yeah, just, we're for a new client, we're adding up to a 20% discount if you're a member of any of those, Greenius, Element, or OLA. And we just, we understand the industry and want to give you better protection and solve your insurance problems, and we'll always have your back. So we're just trying to help you with these webinars become better. And if you are interested in getting a quote in our program, there's both a link and a QR code on this screen that you can take a picture of and start the process, and we can be in contact with each other. So just here to make the industry better.
Awesome. And that's a great point to my next one here is we're a huge supporter of the trade associations, and they bring so much value in education. So we always recommend that you check out the Ohio Landscape Association for all those resources. They're an incredible supporter and advocate for the industry. So we always recommend to check out your trade associations as well. So we do have part 3 coming up on October 3rd. That's where we're going to get into the last part, the training aspect. Again, whenever you have an incident, those site documents are very important. And on the flip side, the training document side of that. So we'll get into that in that next webinar. And thank you very much for joining today. This will be emailed out to everyone. You're going to get a copy of the recording. It usually takes about 24 hours for that to go out. And if you are interested in part 1, Angelica's email is in the chat there. You can email her for a copy of that first part 1, and we'll get that to you. And please sign up for number 3 here. So thanks, everybody. And thanks to our speakers, Lisa and Amy, for making the time and joining us today. The information is insanely valuable, so I really appreciate your time today. So thank you very much.
Great job,
Thanks
ladies.
for having us.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for attending today, and I am going to end the event. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.